This is the 5-Minute Writing Corner with Troy Bernardo. When I talk to other writers, I'll ask them questions about what they're working on or what they want to work on. And often I get a strange response. I'll get some sort of answer where I just kind of get the twist that's going to happen at the end of the story or the novel. I'll get a character who's both internally and externally conflicted. I'll get some sort of MacGuffin, the thing that drives the story. I'll get a lot of things that aren't really a story. And those things can be a great part of an awesome story. I'm not saying that couldn't be built into something, but that's still not a story. And being able to implement a story structure, specifically the hero's journey boiled down, which we'll talk about in a second, is really beneficial to helping make something actually be a true story that I think people would find more appealing. So the question comes of, how do we actually build a good story? And one that audiences will find interesting and riveting, and something they'll actually see a true transformation happen. And that question is, what makes good stories? Really, truthfully, it's a combination of a lot of things, like I said earlier. But the story structure is, I think, the most important part. And without it, the bigger question is kind of more so, how do I stop from making a bad story? Usually, without any kind of structure, you can almost guarantee that there's going to be a confusing story, to say the least. Good, solid story structure is truly how you make things come together. Now, this next picture you might have seen in your high school English class at some point. This is the classic hero's journey. People apply it to stories like the Odyssey, the Epic of Gilgamesh, a lot of those old stories to have this very strict structure in terms of what is happening in the story. And it still applies a lot to today. I'm not pretending like it doesn't, but a little bit less. And a man named Dan Harmon, who's the co-creator of Rick and Morty, and actually the creator of Community, one of my favorite TV shows, if not my favorite TV show, came up with a much simplified, much more modern version of this. Here you can see Dan Harmon's story circle, which is a much cleaner version of the hero's journey. Everything is boiled down to one word: you, need, go, search, find, take, return, and change. This is about as easy as it gets for a story structure. And actually what we're going to do now is, I actually just came up with a story right before making this video. It's very basic, but it'll kind of give you a look into how we can use this to build a story just almost with no effort at all. So let's start with the you. This is where you establish some sort of protagonist. So how about we come up with a story here where the you is a family man who loves to gamble. We establish that very early. This guy has a severe gambling problem, but he also has a family. Now he needs to win or he's going to lose his house. This kind of causes some conflict right away. Without the need here, he's just going to be kind of gambling without any real reason. So he needs to win or he's going to lose his house. So he goes to find some sort of edge, right? He searches it out. This is where he leaves the house, kind of goes into maybe the belly of the underworld of gambling, maybe kind of meets up with some bad people to try and find that edge so he can keep his house and save his family. He searches, he pokes around the mafia, he hangs around shady bars. He kind of is looking around for whoever can lead him to some sort of way he can win this money. And eventually, obviously, he's going to find that edge, and he's going to find it in a fixed boxing match, right? It's happening tomorrow night. He finds where it is. He knows who's going to win and who's going to take the dive. And so, obviously, what's he going to do if he has a gambling problem? He's going to take out all of his money, and he's going to kind of put everything on that to win. He puts everything on this boxer to win this fight. Now, this is where things could potentially go other ways, but I'm just going to stick with this to keep it easy. He's going to return home after the match. And ultimately he can't just walk straight in, right? There's going to be some sort of conflict with his family, conflict with his wife. Maybe she's packed up, who knows? But ultimately there's going to be some sort of change here. He has the money to save his house, but realistically, maybe he has to realize he's going to give up gambling. Maybe he'll stare at the money and consider gambling more, showing no change. It's up to you there. So when I'm teaching, I get a lot of questions like, are there successful stories that don't follow this structure? And the answer is, of course. Not everything is by this rule. A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich is a great example. I hope I'm saying his name right. That's just about a guy in a gulag and what his day is like. Macbeth, we don't have this kind of change at the end, really. He just dies, and Brokeback Mountain, I mean, it's just kind of a sad ending. Generally, sad endings or day in the life stuff is going to not really have these arcs or these heroes' journeys. So that's just something to consider, that yeah, you're right. Not every story follows this rule, but for every one of these, you could probably name 100 or 200 stories, books, movies, video games, TV shows, where you do need them. So if you're interested in any of the resources I used today, there's some great ones down below, some links directly to a PDF that'll help you make a story circle, and also some examples. I believe Batman is what the website I found used. There's also a link to my website, troybernardo.com. Feel free to read through some of my stories on there. In addition, you can also take a look at some other PDFs of some older stories where you can see there's no story structure, at least not like this. And that's it. I know I went a little over 5 minutes, but I hope you had fun. Hopefully this was entertaining, and I'll see you soon for another video.